Hey, how you guys doing? This is Bob Gums. I'm bringing you the Concern Forum. And let me ask you, do me a favor. If you could subscribe to what we're doing here, it would be greatly appreciated. And if you could take the time to make your comments, whether they be positive or negative, that's good too. Because I always like to know how I'm reaching people or if I'm reaching them at all. Now, let me start off by saying that I'm kind of doing something I guess you could say unusual. Uh, what I'm trying to do, excuse me, what I am doing, I'm trying to make this a show that causes people to think. I'm a great believer in the Socratic method of trying to enlighten people. So let's see what we got here. Now, let me start off by saying that America has to heal, right? We have to heal because of our history. Now, I know a lot of folks in America, especially you good people in the heartland, are suffering right now. And I'm going to say something that I know is not going to be, taken too well, but you're suffering because of what you did to yourselves. Now, let me explain something. I was born and raised in a Republican family. Okay? My mom and dad were Republican activists, and they were also union activists and civil rights activists. But that was a different Republican Party. That was the Republican Party of Eisenhower. Okay? And believe it or not, I know this will freak everybody out, but it was also the party of Richard Nixon, believe it or not, up until 63, 64. Yeah, it used to be a big thing on, what was that magazine? Life magazine. And it had Nixon's picture up there, and he was, America's civil rights leader, right? Yeah, so as I said, that was a different Republican Party. This Republican Party that you have now, unfortunately, is basically an embryonic Nazi party. Now, you still have some old school Republicans there trying to hang on by the skin of their teeth. But generally, this is not uh, the party of Lincoln. And I think that people need to understand that. They need to get a basic understanding of that. And how are we going to surmount these huge walls that have been built up around us for the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years? I tell you quite frankly, I don't have all the answers, but I do know that this is something that has to be done. Now, this whole thing, and this really ticks me off because I'm so sick of hearing the bullshit, this big thing about immigration. Listen, America is not like other nations. It is not like European nations. Okay? America is a country of immigrants. Okay? With the exception of the indigenous people whose land got ripped off, everybody else here is a freaking immigrant. Now, that might not sit well with MAGA folks out there, but it's the truth. And at this time in American history, I fear that the truth is in short supply. But there it is, okay? So the idea that a country based upon immigration, and now what you're literally doing is torturing immigrants. Um, I think that's a bit bizarre, quite frankly. Um, this whole idea about MAGA, well, let's call it what it is. Let's be real here. You have a certain section of the white community in America that, follows this MAGA insanity. And they feel that somehow immigrants are replacing them. I don't understand this. You know, um, you have to remember that America was always, as a matter of fact, that's what it was meant to be. It was meant to be essentially a place where everybody could come and participate and better themselves. That was the idea of Lincoln. That was the idea, especially in the 20th century. That's what America was all about. All you O'Donnells and O'Banions and Ciprianis and what have you, Kosciuszkis, and that's what it was all about. So this nonsense about, oh, we got to hunt down the illegals. Forgive me if I say that it really smacks of a certain amount of, dare I say, racism. Um, I don't think that that is the proper brand that America wants to carry into the 21st century, especially looking at the fact that America is like less than 4% of the total population of the globe. Um, I would advise any quote unquote non-white country, i.e., Latin America, because as hard as, unfortunately, a lot of my Latin American brothers and sisters, and I do mean that literally. My father was the son of a Dominican gent and a Haitian mom, and he was born in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And he was Spanish speaking. Obviously, his dad was Spanish speaking. And so that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But, this idea that somehow, white Christian Protestant America somehow has a right to determine the fortunes and futures of non-white people, especially here in the Western Hemisphere. um, I think the world has moved on from that, quite frankly. I understand that Donald Trump has my Navy, and I do say my Navy because Trump is a coward and a draft dodger. So, you know, I think it's I think it's humorous that this guy that ran from the draft 5 times now puts himself up as commander in chief. But hey, he won the election, unfortunately. Now, let me get on something else here also, which really ticks me off. I hate fake outrage. Okay? Now, I don't need anybody to tell me about Rob Reiner. Rob Reiner was a part of my development as the person I am today. I loved the Meathead and Gloria on the Archie Bunker show. I think it was great. But, I hear all these people, decrying what Trump said. Well, listen, Trump is an asshole, okay? And what really ticks me off is that America knew that from the get-go. but they chose to turn they chose to turn their backs on it. They didn't want to, we're not going to talk about that. That's just Donald being Donald. See? And you have a lot of black celebrities out there that, as far as I'm concerned, and I say this as it's a black man, as a black veteran, you have a lot of black celebrities out there that they really have, they have stuff to answer for, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I mean, they can do what the hell they want to do, but I don't want to see these people coming back to the communities of color, talking about what needs to happen. Because see, you slept with the man. I mean, maybe in some cases that's the actual physical truth. But when I'm saying slept with, I'm talking about generally you associated with the man, you hung out with the man, and this is what we have here. You hung out with a guy who was now trying to drive most black folks and Latino folks out of government, out of the military, and essentially set America up as some kind of white nationalist homeland. Screw everybody else. And that's the guy that you hung out with. So that goes for you, Oprah. That goes for a whole bunch of you all out there. So don't, I don't know. Don't try and say like, oh, I never really hung out with Trump. Yeah, you did. Okay. This is the monster. This is the demon that you people closely associated with. Now, and getting to this whole outrage about the Reiner family, and God, that really hurts. Okay. Because as I started to get into in the beginning, the media was a part of my development as a man, as a human being, as an American. I loved the Archie Bunker show. I love what Rob Reiner and his co-star, Gloria, I love what they did with it. But now, I see all these people, because Trump said something absolutely disgusting and evil. And now you have some of these actors who were Trump supporters talking about, oh, well, that was beyond the pale, what Donald said. And you know what I say to that? I say bullshit, quite frankly. Because Trump is the same evil man, denigrated veterans, denigrated handicapped veterans, stole from handicapped veterans, made terrible, ignorant comments about disabled people. All right, remember at one of his rallies, he stood up there and he mocked. He freaking mocked a handicapped news reporter. Right? This is the same guy that said that he enjoyed grabbing women that he didn't know by their private parts. So what really bugs me is the fact that I don't like people. I don't like people trying to play me. Okay, you knew who this man was. You knew what he was about, right? But you accepted it anyway. And now, in this circumstance, that he did something that is like totally insane, totally beyond the pale, totally disgusting. Now you try to paint yourselves as as somebody that, oh, well, he just went too far. Trump started his political journey being a disgusting human being. And I'd like to know, where were these people who are so, I don't know, disgusted by what Donald said about Rob and his wife, Rob Reiner and his wife? Where were they? when Donald was condemning whole ethnic and racial groups of people. Where were you when this guy was saying that Mexico has unleashed rapists, murderers, thieves, drug dealers? Where were you? Where was your voice of condemnation at that time? I didn't hear it. I saw, well, I can't think of his name right now, an actor who I really enjoyed his work. Little short guy, right? I mean, he did a movie where he appeared to be part animal or something, and he was a great Trump supporter. Where were you when Trump was denigrating whole ethnic groups of people? I didn't hear you. I didn't hear your condemnation. I did not hear your moral outrage. Where the freak were you? But now you're going to come out and you're going to say, oh, well, what he said about what happened to Ryan is just terrible. Come on, man. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Look, I'm from Harlem. Don't bullshit me, okay? As a matter of fact, that's the greatest problem that America faces right now. Bullshit. People trying to pretend. Where were you when he was on that podium in front of his followers, making fun of a handicapped person? Where the hell were you? Where were you when he said, he felt because he was a celebrity, he could just walk up to a woman that he don't even know and just grab their private parts? Where the hell were you? I didn't hear your moral outrage. And that goes for a lot of you folks out there, you folks that voted for Trump a second time. You have to share that hypocrisy. See? And that's what really pisses me off about what's happened to the United States of America. Now, we also have this thing with this guy, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense. I'm not calling him Secretary of War. It was the Congress that changed that back in, what was that, 47, 48? And if the Congress wants it to be the Secretary of War and the War Department, then let them do it. It's not Trump's job to, call it the Secretary of War. And I'll be quite frank about it. I'm not comfortable with a goddamn draft dodger talking about, well, we're going to change it from the Defense Department to the War Department. What the hell does he know? He knows about as much about the Secretary of the Defense Department as he knows about going to a supermarket and shopping for groceries. That's another big problem that we have here in the United States. Now, Pig Hegseth, I understand that he belongs to one of these white nationalist Christian religious facilities. I don't even want to call it a Christian church, with his Nazi tattoos and all this other bullshit. And this guy was an officer in the National Guard. Now, I tell you, I got 26 years. Regular Army, regular Navy, Navy Reserve, National Guard, and Army Reserve. I'll tell you straight up, I don't have a whole lot of high regard for National Guard officers, okay? I know I'm going to catch hell for this. The reason being is because, unfortunately, too often National Guard officers are creatures of the communities that they come from. And as we've seen in Trump 1 and Trump 2, you get some pretty screwed up communities out there. Okay. And I'll let it go at that. But, and yeah, have I ever been in the shit, as they say? Yeah, a couple of times. No, I ain't Rambo, okay? But yeah, I know what fear means, and I'll let that go at that. Now, Hegseth, he basically made sure he would fire all the non-white high-ranking officers, all the high-ranking female officers, and take down all the pictures of, the Japanese Americans, Black Americans, anything that showed that, yeah, well, people of color and women have put skin in the game. See, apparently that's what he's all about. Which I kind of expect that, especially looking wherever, region this clown comes from originally. So that shouldn't be as a surprise. And this whole idea about, what is it, the double tap? Heck, if you are a freaking murderer, okay? And one of my greatest hopes is to see you someday sitting in front of the bar of justice for the murders that you have committed against Latin American people in the Caribbean and off the coast of Venezuela, quite frankly. And you are a piss poor, as far as I'm concerned, you must have been a piss poor officer in the National Guard because apparently you never read the UCMG and you're not familiar with the Geneva Conventions and all other international agreements. And I think, quite frankly, um, and I know it's hard for military people to think in these terms, but I think the best thing that could happen to the United States is that you get carried out of there in chains, quite frankly, for your crimes. And I do believe that the United States not signing onto the ICC, International Court of Justice, uh, I don't know, somehow to me that smacks of a certain type of arrogance and supremacy because you feel that, people like you feel that you could act above the law because of your, white Christian nationalist dogma. I say again, America is less than 4% of the total population of the planet. What do they say in kindergarten about, people learning how to play together, work together? Apparently, you never picked up on that lesson. And apparently, the National Guard didn't teach you that. So much, so on and so forth. And this idea about somehow America has claims on Venezuelan oil. I would raise the question, are we back like in 1913, 1914? I thought that American foreign policy had evolved a little bit. And I thought that what happened during Vietnam would be a good lesson. Apparently, some of us who now hold positions of power and influence in the government haven't learned the goddamn thing. So I hope that middle America, you're the ones that really, push this whole marriage thing. I hope that you will feel good about seeing your sons and daughters come back in body bags. I tell you what, if you try to invade my home, I would do everything I could to make sure that you ended up in a body bag. That's human nature. And I'm quite sure if we try to attack, if a foreign foe tried to attack Kansas, or God forbid, Mississippi, or New York, we would have that same reaction. And see, that's the problem with this particular administration and their ideas that, their ideology of, white Christian nationalist supremacy. And because you think that you're the only one that's human, and you think that everybody else somehow will allow themselves to be subjugated by you, okay? And that's not the real world. This ain't the 19th century. This ain't the 20th century. It's a new day. So we will see what happens. Now, the American people, and I know, oh, well, we voted for Donald because we didn't feel that Kamala Harris could handle the economy. It was all for economic reasons, right? Eh. Well, see, here goes the thing. You didn't feel, a lot of y'all out there didn't feel that a black Asian woman could handle the economy. So, yeah, it was about the economy. But unfortunately, come on, this is unreconstructed America here. And unfortunately, yeah, racism played a part in this past presidential election. And people are now suffering from it. And I'm trying to find somebody that will tell me that I'm wrong when I say that, yeah, America as a whole would have been a lot better off with Kamala Harris. Now, don't get me wrong. I did not approve of the way that campaign was run. Well, there were a lot of reasons for that. Okay, a lot of infighting and what have you. Mistakes were made, but America, you folks that voted, you chose to put back the guy that was, he tried to overthrow the damn government. Okay? He basically took the economy and told working class Americans to shove it. And well, you see what him and his son-in-law and his buddies are doing. They're going throughout the world, basically making good deals. How many Americans feel that they have benefited from the good deals that Trump and his son-in-law, the Kushner, and his son-in-law family, the Kushners, how many of y'all feel that has benefited you? Okay. Oh, I got something else for you. All these folks out here with this immigration bullshit, and that's what it is, bullshit. Because between the American citizens who happen to have brown skin or an accent and uh, the immigrants who they own stores, they work on construction, all these people, putting them all together, right? Uh, he said he was going to get rid of the cryptos. And most of the people that he has had locked up, deported, beaten on, what have you, they ain't criminals. A lot of them are veterans. A lot of them are, American citizens. And I'm just wondering, I want somebody to tell me that they have received a pay raise since Donald Trump has begun his massive deportation. I mean, I'm not even going to say it was, look, I'm not even going to say massive deportation is good or bad right now. I'm not even going to touch that. Okay? I just want someone to tell me that jobs have been created because of Trump's policy of massive deportation. I want a white American worker to tell me that his paycheck has gotten better because of the fact that brown people and black people, because, hey, the Latino culture is a multicultural thing, right? Trust me, I know. That's in my blood, okay? So you tell me, have you received an extra $5, $20, $50 because of brown and black people being dragged off the street? I want you to tell me that. Kind of quiet out there, huh? What else I got written here? Oh yeah, listen. I feel so weird saying, talking about this stuff. I'm just wondering when in the hell are all Americans of all ethnic backgrounds and colors going to wake up to the fact that we have an administration that has declared war on the 90% of the American population? Now, I'm going to be accused of hyperbole. And, oh, well, you're just trying to spread fear. Hey, these clowns, and I'm talking about Trump and his merry band of thieves, since they've been in, right? What have they done? Oh, okay, we're going to stop cancer research. Okay? We're going to end, what is that? The national, what is it called? National atmospherics? In other words, the people that measure climate change, number one. And number two, give warnings. Hey, Mississippi, you guys by the coast, you're going to have a freaking hurricane. That's basically what they do. And and Trump and his guys are canceling that. Now, how do you figure that? Right? How the hell do you say that you love America and you end cancer research? I don't get it. Right? Now, maybe I don't know, maybe I'm just simple minded. I consider myself to be a simple man, but I never consider myself to be simple minded. How the hell are you going to cancel shit that helps people? I don't get it. Right? Now, USA. Now, I'm living over here in Uganda. I've been here since June. And a lot of folks, well, basically, that's a death sentence. Now, I'm one of those people that believes that Africa has to be able to stand up on its own 2 feet. But I also recognize that after a couple of, 100 so years, 150 years of colonialism, um, and colonialism did a huge amount of damage. As a matter of fact, colonialism did in Africa the same thing that slavery and racism did to Africans in America. Okay? And most Americans don't know about that because they won't teach the history about that. Right? So let's put that right there out front. In the meantime, you have organizations that USAID, right? That and I thank God knows I didn't agree with him on much, but I do thank George Bush Jr. because he did some marvelous things to help the people in the so-called third world in terms of disease and food and what have you. And that's something that he should be very proud of. As a matter of fact, I think that's the greatest thing that he did in his administration. And Trump just comes in and says, hey, screw these damn people, him and Elon Musk. We're going to just let them die. And they had food there and medicine for the people. And basically what they did, they just dumped it in the ocean. So you got a lot more dead Africans. I guess that's what the Trump administration wants to see. I can't think of any other reason for that. But, it's funny because America is not, how should I say, we're not, there's no magic wall that protects America from disasters and what have you. Oh, and that's another thing. He wants to kill FEMA. How the hell are you going to kill? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You got what is it, Secretary of Health, was it Kennedy? Oh God, I know his father's turning over in his grave. You got kids dying from measles. Freaking measles? I mean, I thought we had knocked that out, what, 60, 70 years ago. But because of these anti-vax maniacs, oh, don't get vaccinated. Don't let your baby get vaccinated. Come on, man. I'm trying to understand. Okay. And I guess in this regard, I'm not that bright, but I'm just trying to figure out why would any, especially a working class person, why the hell would you vote Republican? Why the hell would you vote for Trump? This man's killing you. He's telling you that well, down south they talk about Meemaw. In New York we would say grandma. In the nursing home, right? You vote for a guy that has pulled the rug from underneath Meemaw. How could she be in the nursing home? How could she get hospitalization? I don't care about being hated because I'm going to say what the hell I want to say if I believe it to be the truth. But what frightens me, and this is one of the things I've always respected about Europeans. I know that you have some groups in Europe now, some right wing groups, that they're changing somewhat. But see, one of the things I've always respected in the past about European racism is the fact that if they have good programs, good social programs that help people, they're not going to cut their own throats. Now, they might have problems about the immigration issues, which, by the way, America is really responsible for. Okay. Um, the first time I was in Europe, I was like, what, 17, 18? And with NATO. And I traveled around a lot in Europe. Immigration was not a big deal, but that's because of the fact that America had not destabilized so much the Middle East. And, or what they call the Middle East, and caused people to flee out of their country. Syria, uh, Northern Africa, even Africa. Because well, how come those Africans, African countries, why can't they get it together? Well, because of the fact that America basically has been supporting people, okay, who ran governments for themselves and took money under the table from what, CIA, from the American government, and to supposedly, stop the what do you want to call it nowadays, terrorists or the Russians or the Chinese, that kind of bullshit. And just like they killed the CIA arranged to help the Belgians assassinate Patrice Lumumba. Okay, and what you reap is what you sow, and you have people that you support people that keep the country in constant chaos, and people are human. They're what the hell am I going to stay here for? See, and that's how you have the bulk of your immigration problem. Now, as much as I love Europe, as much as I love Western Europe, I have to admit that in certain quarters, I'm not blaming all of them, but in certain quarters, they're full of shit, quite frankly. Because remember now, Western Europe, they had no qualms about getting millions of people from Asia, Asia period, from India to Vietnam to fight in their wars. Look up the amount of people, non-white European people, that fought and died in World War One, and then fought and died in World War Two. See? So, let's not play this game about, oh, well, we have to save Western civilization. Hey, look, remember, if it wasn't for Africa and the Middle East, there wouldn't be any Western civilization. Okay? And I've been to there in London to, universities there. I went to the, Congressional, was it Library of Congress in America. Okay. The facts are there, right? And you have low IQ, or I should say low educated folks, like here in America, we call them MAGA, in Germany and in France and in England, they call them something else. Okay? So this whole immigration thing, a lot of it is bullshit, to be quite frank about it. Okay? Always remember one thing. There's only one race. It's called the human race. And I think that that's something that people really need to understand and learn. Um, America hurts herself when we put people in office like Donald Trump. Because in spite, like you got some assholes out there, I think in, what is it, Arkansas, they want to have these all white towns and what have you. I mean, that's fine, if you want to live like that. But unfortunately for them, most of us in America, we have to deal with the rest of the world. And one of the things I hope you don't mind me jumping from spot to spot, but I just see this whole thing as being all related, okay? It's like Donald Trump, where they had the guys from Rwanda and Congo talking about making a peace settlement. Well, ain't no damn peace between Congo and Rwanda. It was bullshit, number one. Number two, I question the intelligence of any African leader that thinks that you are going to be able to utilize a president who believes in white Christian supremacy, and you think that you can trust this guy to negotiate a settlement, a peace between your two African nations? I'm sorry, I don't see that. I know I'm going to catch hell for this, but look, I'm over 65. I don't really give a shit. I think that if you're fortunate enough to be an American, especially a black American, and make it past 65, you got an obligation to speak the truth, okay? And use, your experience to basically, how we used to say back in the 70s, to tell like it is, right? So I think, quite frankly, that any non-European nation that expects any decent arbitration on any issue out of this present government that we have in the United States, you're an ass. I really believe that. How in the hell do you expect to get any kind of a respectable deal from a country, albeit a so-called superpower, that really thinks that you are, well, I'm black, African descent. So I guess that puts me, in their minds, that puts me on the lowest part of the food chain. But if you're brown or yellow, now, okay, I guess they see you as maybe a couple of steps higher, but they still see you as inferior. So how the hell do you think you're going to have any kind of reasonable arbitration with a gang that thinks that you're inferior? I just don't get that. Okay? Now I got a little, I got my bullshit bachelor's degree. I got almost a year towards a master's. And no, not Harvard or Yale, but just, hey, I got an associate's degree too, come to think of it. But, hey, Believe me, nobody's going to open up any big gates or any doors for, my academic achievements. But to me, it's just common sense. You know, if people think that you're inferior. What kind of agreement you think you're going to get? And let's not just talk about people of color. Yeah, you folks in Western Europe, if you think that you got a friend in the Trump administration, you really are an asshole. I'm sorry. The administration that we have in America right now, okay, this Republican administration, they are really guided by this whole MAGA philosophy, right? That God only loves white Christian Protestants. Okay? Now, you can throw rocks at the computer screen, the TV screen, what have you. Look at the facts. Look at what's being said by this administration. I mean, we got a Secretary of State, Trump, one of Trump's puppy dogs. Um, this guy he would sell his mother, as far as I'm concerned, okay, to be kissed by the Trump and the MAGA party. You got the vice president. I don't know how in the hell this guy got, what did he go, Yale, law school, Harvard? Jesus Christ. What the hell happens to people? They get these marvelous educations and they turn out, when they get in public life, they're like complete assholes. I don't get it. I really don't. He made some speech, so I was in Pennsylvania, some freaking way, the vice president. I can't believe this guy was a Marine. I really can't. I was Navy. I mean, I'm down with the Corps, but I don't get this guy. I really don't. I don't understand how he can be so stupid. And he hangs out with I call him like a junior antichrist, the tech guy. What's his name? Teal or whatever. But these people they're freaking idiots. No kind of moral conscience or compass or whatever. I just no, forget it. But again, make a long story short, if you as a Western European or an African or Asian, uh, Middle Eastern, whatever that means, right? If you really think that you're going to get a fair shake in any kind of arbitration with this present American junta that we have now in our government, um, you're out of your freaking mind. I'm serious. And I'm born and raised in America, did a bunch of years in the military, and I know I know America, and I'm just telling you, you're being played for a sucker, quite frankly. Um, you need to put a sign on your door, you know, give me a call in 2029, I'm serious. These people, they have no respect for our American institutions. Okay? And for those people that want to crack wise about, oh, well, now you live in Uganda. I came over here to try and, begin some type of business. I am a registered voter. I plan to go back to America. Um, I mean, I don't know. Maybe after we clean out the Gestapo over there, I don't know. But yeah, I'm very sad about what my country has come to. It's a freaking service. Excuse me, a freaking circus. It's a big, round, white nationalist white American nationalist freaking circus. And it hurts. I see in so-called heartland, white Americans standing up on bread lines, begging for food, not being able to take their kids to the doctor. Come on, man. I love America. I really do. We got a lot of problems. But damn, just like Lincoln said, man, you know, we need to go forward. We need to pull it together. I'm a parent myself. I don't want to see no kid go hungry. I don't give a freak what color he is. I don't want to see people being beaten down in the streets by ICE. Is that America? It's funny. I think that one of our greatest presidents was Dwight Eisenhower. And I'm a left-wing, woke, liberal, progressive Democrat. And I will tell you, I think one of our greatest our presidents was Dwight Eisenhower. Because he warned us. It's a funny thing. And I'll even give credit to Ronald Reagan, who I'm not, believe me, I'm not crazy about at all. But I think that Ronnie, when he was a lot smarter when he left the White House than when he went in. Seriously. Same thing with Eisenhower. And he kind of saw a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with now. He saw it coming. You know. Listen, when I first got to D.C. when I was in the Navy, and I got assigned to the Defense Intelligence Agency, and I'm walking around, young cat, wearing my dress, my Navy bell bottoms, and I'm looking cool, right? And hey, where the women? I mean, it was loving it, right? I got my big, cosmic top secret clearance and all this other good shit, right? And I remember when I say us, I was the only enlisted guy there. Everybody else was like generals and colonels and, GS-13 civilian type and whatnot. And they had two dudes. One was from semi-retired from the State Department, I believe. And the other one was it FBI or CIA? I can't remember. And their whole thing, it was like about a month in class at the Pentagon. And they were talking about how the Soviet Chinese bloc was using America's racial history uh, against the United States. Because, look, let's face it, um, the Western world, you need Africa, you need Latin America. I think you need Africa more because I think Africa has more strategic minerals and stuff. And Eisenhower recognized that. I'm not saying he was all that happy about it, but he recognized that. And the whole thing about, I know the Kennedys came in, they were talking about civil rights, and, that was the beginning and what have you. And these guys basically told us that starting with the Eisenhower presidency, that the whole thing about civil rights and ending legal discrimination, like no colored signs and stuff like that at restaurants, that is when it became a national, what do you call it? A national priority. Okay. Well, what's the word? It became a thing of national security, right? In the interest of the United States. Because Chinese and especially the Russians, they were going to African capitals because you gotta remember everything started popping like in the 50s. African nations were either getting independence or they were becoming independent. Same thing in Asia, right? And Latin America. When I say in Latin America, they were becoming free thanks to Castro. the corporate stranglehold that American corporations used to have on Latin America. And the Russian cats, they were going all over the so-called third world saying, hey, listen, man, why you want to hang out with these guys, the Americans? Because they think that you're dogs, right? They think anybody that's got a dark skin is a dog, right? And they had the pictures of civil rights people being blown up and bitten by dogs and beaten by police. And Eisenhower was like, yo, man, look, we gotta change the image here. Because we need these people, we need these countries. And that's when you start seeing the American government under a Republican now start to change and says that integration is a national security priority. Now, this was going on at the same time that J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI were trying to, attack, black organizations like the NAACP and, CORE and all other good stuff. But overall, the government came to the realization that we can't go up against the communists in Russia and China while the world sees us, degrading people of color here at home. See? And now, with the Trump administration, it's like we're taking a giant leap backwards. Okay? Notice the bullshit that Trump is, how he's trying to tear down South Africa, right? How he's trying to tear down Brazil. Because BRICS, that is the global South starting to stand up, see, and say, hey, man, we want a piece of the pie too. We want to work together as equals. And see, people like Trump and MAGA, the idea of Latin Americans or Africans or Asians being accepted as equals, that scares it scares the living shit out of them. It makes them, I don't know, it makes them feel bad. I don't know. But see, that's what this whole thing is about. And let me wrap it up by saying the American people, you're going to have to make a choice next year in 26 and again in 28. Keeping in mind that, you are less than 4% of the globe's population. And you're going to have to figure out what kind of world, what kind of country, and what kind of world do you want for your kids. If you want a world of constant, fighting and, sending troops to here, there, you want that? Or do you want a world where people gradually, over a period of time, are learning to cooperate with each other on this planet? See, that's going to be up to you. But I'm just laying out what I've known, what I've experienced. See, and it's going to be up to you to make the right choice. Yeah, it's just that simple. I think, what was it? I think King said, are we going to learn to live together in some kind of semblance of brotherhood or fake brotherhood, whatever, or we are going to destroy each other like fools? It's just that simple. Listen, getting late. I got other things to do. I thank you for allowing me to have this time to speak with you. Um, all I can say is keep reading, stay woke, and take care of each other. Peace.